观众，这
你会不会太近，头太大？
你看，好，30分了，开始。
Hi, good morning from Taiwan. Welcome you join this event. I don't know where you are now. Maybe in your city it's afternoon, it's evening, but it's lovely we have you together. I'm Ping Li, the president of Alliance for Women's Rights and Sustainable Development. This session will be hosted by the Alliance for Women's Rights and Sustainable Development. So in the very beginning, I would like to take this privilege to introduce the AWRSD, a very new and young organization. The AWRSD, which is a non-government organization, the goal of the Alliance is to set up an exchange and a cooperation platform for the women's rights and the sustainable development. And the platform will enable us to promote relative research, practice, and advocacy in order to reach gender equality and global sustainable development. In this moment, I have a big honor in behalf of the AWRSD to be the moderator for this session entitled Maintain Progress of SDGs under COVID-19 threats. We start from the concept note. The COVID-19 has swept world in the spring of 2020, brought fear, loneliness, lockdown, illness, and death. COVID-19 has comprehensively affected people's social and economic life. This wave of academics has also caused many gender issues, including domestic violence and sexual violence, women and care responsibilities, epidemic prevention materials and women's needs, and women's economic impact and other issues. Today, we have 5 presentations from our outstanding and professional speakers. For each speaker, there is supposedly to have 15 minutes talk. Then after 5 presentations, we are going to take some questions and comment for discussion if time is available. So you may write down your questions and comment in the chat. Now, I would like to introduce the first speaker, Dr. Qiu Shuti. She's a specialist of family medicine and PhD in epidemiology. She's the Global Vice President for Capacity Building, Education, and Training of International Union for Health Promotion and Education. She is the adjunct professor at the National Yangming Jiaotong University in Taipei. Today, her topic for this session is Taiwan's response to COVID-19, the health and sustainable development perspective. Please, Dr. Qiu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, moderator, for your kind introduction. It is my greatest honor and pleasure to join you in this CSW event to share with you Taiwan's response to COVID-19 from the health and sustainable development perspective. I will talk about this topic in 3 parts. The first part is the global observations, showing you the variation in country performance against the COVID-19 and its impact on health and sustainable development. The second part, I will talk about what have made Taiwan perform well in 2020, and then I will give you some concluding remarks. First of all, let me declare my conflict of interest. I served as the health commissioner of Taipei City when SARS attacked Taiwan in 2003. And I served as the Director General of Health Promotion Administration in Taiwan. And currently in Taiwan, in the national government, the ruling party is DPP. And in 15 among the 22 counties and cities, the ruling party is KMT. First part is about global observations. You can see that from the number of cumulative cases worldwide, the Western Pacific region is the one region with the lowest number of cumulative cases. And the daily new case number is also quite low. It's only 6%, that of Europe. And you can see it looks like one planet with 2 worlds. If we look at the cumulative mortality rate from COVID-19, you can see Western Pacific region has quite a low mortality rate, and Taiwan is one among the lowest in this region. The mortality rate is only 0.42 per million. And last year in Lancet, the second leading medical journal in the world, it published the analysis on 9 high-income countries and regions on their interventions. 5 countries in the Asia-Pacific region, including Singapore, Japan, South Korea, Hong Kong, and New Zealand, and 4 countries in Europe, which are UK, Spain, Germany, and Norway. They look at several things, including community engagement, health system capacity, border control, etc. All these high-income regions or countries have universal health coverage, but they varied widely on the intensity of interventions, especially on border control and community engagement. You can see New Zealand, South Korea, Japan, Singapore, and Hong Kong, they implemented universal inbound quarantine for 14 days. Norway implemented 10 days quarantine with few exceptions, while Germany and UK only did selective quarantine, and Spain did not do quarantine for inbound passengers. And regarding community engagement, New Zealand, South Korea, Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Norway, they all have high degree of universal compliance, while Germany, UK, and Spain, they had some difficulties. And you can see actually New Zealand and these Western Pacific countries, they even aimed to achieve 0 COVID target, and they actually implemented stringent containment to achieve 0 domestic case as their target, while the other countries actually implemented mitigation, only aiming to flatten the curve. So the policy is quite different. And for 0 COVID strategy, you have to do stringent containment, trying to find, test, trace, isolate, and support all cases to prevent any spread. So eventually, those Western Pacific countries have very low mortality rate, while even among European countries, you can see differences that UK and Spain had higher mortality rate. Germany in between, and Norway actually performed quite similar to Western Pacific countries. Even among Nordic countries, they were different. You can see the difference between Sweden and Norway. And as I mentioned, the very important difference is whether we continue to do containment or some countries adopted mitigation and give up containment very early in the stage. Okay, and you can see for those countries with wider spread, there are factors associated with mortality. So actually, COVID-19 tend to cause deaths among people with non-communicable diseases like diabetes, chronic kidney disease, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, etc., and older age and male. And actually, it also tends to happen among people with low socioeconomic status and living in a more deprived communities. And so the editor-in-chief of Lancet, Richard Horton, argued that COVID-19 perhaps should not be called as a pandemic, but a syndemic, because it has two categories of disease interacting within specific population. And it caused not only COVID-19 deaths, but also all-cause mortality rate in countries badly hit by the outbreak. And it influenced not only physical health, but mental health and education and income and employment, etc. And it shows progress toward SDGs. And the analysis showed the countries with lower mortality rate also had lesser impact on economy. So if you want to save economy by giving up the control, then actually you are giving up both economy and health. But protecting people will be the best policy. It will also protect the economy. So what happened in Taiwan, although we are located close to the first epicenter, but we have done many key decisions to protect our people, and there are many publications. And almost always people cited our experiences during such outbreak. We experienced lockdown of several hospitals due to misdiagnosis of patients without travel history, because it's very difficult to identify, to tell the difference of SARS from the common respiratory disease if they do not have travel history. So we learned that to protect the community, we have to do early border control plus multi-level protection. So that's our lesson. And also we had the experiences of developing SOPs to do quarantine, to do tracing, isolation, etc. And we had the experience to use our Communicable Disease Control Act. And we also piloted the operation of Central Epidemic Command Center at that time. But we found the late border control was a problem, and we also had to strengthen our system. So we strengthened hospital infection control programs, and also we strengthened the infrastructure of our CDCs. And also we improved our Communicable Disease Control Act to ban the spread of wrong information. And so this time, when something like SARS was coming back, immediately when China reported to WHO, we started on-board health check. And later on, we actually banned all the entry from Wuhan and then from China. And as early as March 19, we actually banned all the entry of foreign passengers. And for citizens who came back, they had to undergo universal quarantine for 14 days. Okay, and we kicked off the centralized command and coordination center very early to do the whole of government approach to prevent the control. And there is another very interesting phenomenon. We call it advanced deployment phenomenon, because the central commander sometimes said that he would like to maintain some degree of flexibility, trying not to be too radical or too invasive. However, our healthcare sector and local governments and the managers of workplaces, public places, our citizens and experts, and including the opposition political party, they would like the government to do more, and they advocated for higher intensity of intervention. So we call this the advanced deployment phenomenon. And you can see the societal solidarity that we people, including the ruling party and including those in the opposition party, would like to see a zero COVID target. And as early as January 25 last year, the off-power president already was wearing the mask, and he was advocating for everyone to wear the mask. And you can see our people, when they were gathering together, they put on the mask, although the CECC, the Central Command Center at that time, did not say we need to put on the mask. So our citizens were practicing advanced deployment too. And you can see that finally, until April 5, our government declared that we should put on the mask, but the others have been doing that early on. And also regarding the border control, it's the experts and local governments who were advocating for border control against the Western countries. And then also, for example, the local governments, they would like to make sure there is no leakage in the transportation from airport to the quarantine home, and they designated quarantine hotels, taxis, etc. And some local governments even wanted to establish their local epidemic epidemiological data, and they were blamed for doing too much. So you can see it's a comprehensive system, and the local governments have done a lot to safeguard the community, to work on community settings, on individuals, and on health systems. And of course, we have a resilient health system. We have universal coverage, and we link big data to help identify imported cases. And we established referrals and collaboration between health services. And we applied digital technology to for border control, for quarantine. We have digital fencing to make sure that people were staying where they should be for quarantine. And we also apply digital technology for contact tracing, for early detection of imported cases, for telemonitoring, telemedicine, and for mask rationing program. And you can see, yes, we tried to apply digital technology for many things. And in healthcare settings, we arrange priority arrangement to reduce waiting time for our elderly. And also we make sure that everyone can receive testing and treatment without payment. And in addition to that, for people under quarantine, our government provides subsidy and foods. And the mask is provided with low price. And also our government subsidizes staff caring for COVID-19 patients. But in addition to that, you can see local governments and the politicians, they see health as a priority, and our citizens have high health literacy. We owe this to 20 years of development on healthy cities, health promoting cities, and age-friendly cities. So in conclusion, to do a good COVID-19 control, we need to build a synergy between different SDGs, including good governance, good robust health system, innovative technology. We have to look at social determinants of health. We need to have resilient cities and communities, and we need to have collaboration between government and private sectors. And we base on our previous experiences, but also we have the robust democracy to support health sector to do more to prevent and control the pandemic. And we maintained a zero COVID target. And of course, the health system is also important. But we also had some problems because we did not do very intensive testing. And we also worried that the future digital transformation of health system may lack of inadequate motivation due to because we don't have the true pandemic. And we actually had a delay in vaccine deployment and procurement. So we might have delay in general reopening of our border, okay? And so the final comment is spread of COVID-19 impacted all the sectors, and good control is the key, and good governance is the key, and the democracy alone is not a guarantee to good governance or good control. It's the robust democracy that embraces inclusiveness, whole of society participation, diverse opinions, and accountability. That is important. And we worry about recent extremism in Taiwan. We hope we can maintain robust democracy, which will safeguard our country for the long term. Thank you for your attention.
She delivered an international view about the situation of COVID-19, and she mentioned what we learned from the SARS experience. Which kind of action should we take? Particularly, she mentioned what should we think about during the pandemic period. Also, she pointed out the health and sustainable development approach. Thank you very much, Professor Chiu.
Thank you.
And now, let's move to Professor Wang Lirong, the second speaker. Professor Wang, she is the professor of the Department of Social Work at the National Taiwan University. As a visiting professor, she had been in Kyoto University, Chiba University, UCLA, and Oxford universities. She is really an international scholar. Professor Wang has been involved in NGOs movement actively. And I think she is also one member of our NGOs leader. Today, Professor Wang's topic is gendered impact of COVID-19 toward a gender responsive society. The floor is yours, Professor Wang.
Thank you, President Li Ping. It's my great honor to be here because this is a great time for our Taiwanese women's movement to think about what we can present in NGOCS Laudio. And thank you, our president, our moderator, Li Ping. Because of you, we can do this session to let people know from the gender perspective, from medical perspective, or even from the local perspective about what we can do further about COVID-19. And today I'm going to tell you, talk about what is the impact, gender perspective of COVID-19 and how we can create a gender equality workplace for our society. As President Lee told us, we had to be more cautious about our local situation. And based my background of training, I work for social work, and I also do the research in the area gender care and violence against women and gender and work. So most of my presentation is not medical matter for sure. We'll be very like a gender perspective and the social perspective. And this is my part of presentation. First one will be focusing on gender impact of COVID-19. Then we'll talk about what is a Taiwan gender sensitive model. Is that true or there's not so serious? And then we'll move to the last part. What is a sustainable gender equality plan we can take? I will talk about how we can build up a gender sensitive programs for workplace, because we thought the crisis is just like an opportunity. In Chinese saying, even there's a crisis, But just like Professor Zhou says, we can build up resilient society from our experience, which is not so good for our life, but opportunity is based on the crisis. And then let's move to the first part, gender impact of COVID-19 in Taiwan. As Professor just said, we are pretty lucky in terms of the impact of COVID-19. Now we have a kind of a confirmed case about 1,008 or 10, but we only have the death case around 10. So it's really incredible in Taiwan that we are not so affected by the COVID-19 because a lot of information provided from all over the world, like from medical model or from social medical model, even psychological model. So we are so lucky in our society, but we still have a long way to go because there's a second wave and the third wave coming on into our society. And many people say it's because our leader is female, so we can build up a caring society which prevent COVID-19. Yes, Taiwan has been recognized as a very successful case of fighting the COVID-19. And because of a lot of leadership has been investigated, saying that leadership can do differently. But in our research, we are not going to focus so much about this because it still takes a long way to estimate. But in general, last year, it seems like that countries emphasizing equality and partnership are more likely to be female leaders, particularly at the time of combating COVID-19. From the gender impact of COVID-19, you can find out this is so crucial in terms of framework. First one, we have to think about what COVID-19 widened from gender and economic inequality. And secondly, how gender-related data can be collected. And thirdly, we also worry about how gender perspective or gender responsive policy to manage it. Crisis risk. So in Taiwan, we find out COVID-19 still threatened Taiwan, just like UN Women has been argued. First one, we also find out women's precarious economic security has been threatened. Second, higher economic and health risk of feminized sectors has been one of the situations which we had to face. And thirdly, burden of unpaid domestic work and care work has been threatening too. And then we have a lot of migrant workers. They might be the population or marginalized. We need to work more. And then finally, violence against women has been intensified in some area in Taiwan. Let's go to the first. What is the impact of unemployment rate in Taiwan under the threat of COVID-19? In Taiwan, yes, women unemployment rate are increasing at the time of the COVID-19. And compared to the same period last year, the unemployment rate is really high, increased by 3% compared with 3% for male and 7.3% for female. So you can see the impact of the unemployment rate to the female is much higher than male. And secondly, look about the unemployment rate related to the comparison between the countries. Taiwan still facing the unemployment rate with a high risk on the female side. And there's a gender gap in unemployment rate among any other countries like Japan and Taiwan and the United States as well. Then move to the unpaid leave. Many people, particularly females, suffered around the unpaid leave during the pandemic in Taiwan. Immediate impact on the service industry are significant, particularly due to the boundary control and the restricting the social distancing. So tourism and the related service in last year particularly. So the impact of industry become more prominent in the second wave. And third, and next we go to think about healthcare and social care workers. Most of our health and social care population are composed of females. So, and accommodation and food service sector also composed of female. And then you can see many women are occupied by the high infection risk, and they are facing the personal issues like a person working in a health profession, a person in a care worker, a person as a teacher teaching in as a professionals in our society. So they are the most people facing the high risk of infection of COVID-19. And this is something related to the industry of female who might work and face high risk of COVID-19, like human health and social work activities field of occupation, and then education, then the accommodation as food service activity and wholesale and retail trade. So this is the economic impact in Taiwan with the feminized sector analysis. And as I mentioned before, unpaid care and domestic work also is the area we have to pay more attention, because most of female working at care and domestic work, and there are many performed without financial reward. And this can have significant impact on the work and family balance well-being. And I think I just skipped this one. And finally come to the impact of violence against women, because more people are home and more people are lack of money to deal with their life. So violence against women has been increasing. Like Taiwan, there's a 10% increase compared to the data at the same stage of 2 years. And second part, let's go to the Taiwan is a gender sensitive model to combat combat to the COVID-19. In fact, we hasn't found a lot of paper talking about how gender perspective can be applied in Taiwan in combating COVID-19. Usually we find out 5 success factors, nothing related to the gender issues. First one, SARS experience. Second one, we usually talk about Central Epidemic Control Center. They are so powerful. And then information transparency. Then people might say because resource allocation. And border control is one another successful factor. And then community transition prevention. And then medical technology, as Professor Zhou mentioned about. And then nice citizenship. In my presentation, I really like to focus on some issue related to nice citizenship. First one, I just like, we have heard from the Professor Zhou. She mentioned about 03 SARS outbreak experience, pave the way of fighting this pandemic. And secondly, many people say because central government called the machinery for combat. This is so crucial because every day there's a lot of story talking, daily life press briefing around, so it will increase the possibility and possibility to know what is going on in this Taiwan situation. And one thing we had to pick up, many people, many papers talking about is national health insurance efficient coverage. Taiwan has been famous in its health insurance system in the world. And the development of medical care system and the medical technology is an important part in Taiwan model. So you can see how Taiwan can be successful in this pandemic, because there's a lot of paper talking about affordability and the quality of health care. And the role of a national health system combat COVID-19 is quite successful in terms of affordability, healthcare, case management, and then HR and car mass distribution, and the telemedicine during the quarantine. And we also think about, we also can provide something related to health insurance vision coverage is TCC inquiry, travel, occupation, contact, history cluster. And one thing I would to mention is that people are so nice in our society, full of caring. We have a kind of name-based mask distribution system, and people are follow the rule regulated by government. And this name-based mask distribution system can be very accessible because people just follow the rule to have the prevention mask. Another issue which is so successful is related to community awareness program. As my understanding, this is might be the word. It's very precious in Taiwan because people are so community oriented and secularized a lot because we want to build community better than what we expect. So many people just say, oh yes, follow the rule, and the community can take care all, and we have to sector individually. And then I would mention care citizenship. Taiwan is a society full of caring of mind. No matter where you go, no matter where you are, but we think about caring is number one in our society. This is a special element called quality of the people. And people has kind of quality in their mind and their community. So we can see how caring element in our individuals, in our society, and in our community is so important to fight COVID-19. And last part, but not the least, I'm going to tell you how gender responsive policy and programs have been done in the future, or what we have learned from COVID-19. In Taiwan, we try to figure out, is there gender response policy and program? Yes, we do have some. Let me show you some. Yeah, there's a called UNICEF program called White Action need to be taken with the gender equality. There's a 5 care for the caregivers, prepare for prepare for increase in gender-based violence, and then maintain core health and education systems, and then engage more women and health rights, and then finally ensure gender data available. Let's go back to the framework, but I'm not going to go to the everyone, but this is my generalized data, how we have found out from our society or from our academic work. Gender responsive policies in Taiwan is so crucial to reflect the data and from the gender impact perspective. We try, but still a lot of information going around, we have to focus. And we find out there are some approach has been categorized as a gender sensitive approach to the virus. First one is flexible work support for working women, and economic support package for vulnerable women, and temporary shelters from domestic violence cases, and telehealth services for women in particular. And also we have an information resource program for migrant workers. And certainly, just like Professor Zhou mentioned, our society full of social resilience program to the whole society. Every day, open the newspaper, you can see, yes, we need to be resilient after this kind of impact. And in terms of, as I mentioned before, crisis is opportunity. We find out some gender perspective workplace arrangement can be developed. We call flexible work arrangement, flex time off, flex location and roles. So this is something we have done. Because time limit, I just stop here. Finally, just to give you some words. Finally, a family-oriented program in the workplace have been developed very quickly after COVID-19. And those are so important to our recovery from the COVID-19. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Wang, for your very valuable presentation. You gave us a very important view on the gender impact of the COVID-19. And you reminded us we should pay attention to the workplace, how to help women in the workplace during the COVID-19 period. Thank you very much. And next, we will invite Dr. Jinli Zhang. Zhang Jinli, she is the Commissioner, Social Welfare Department of New Taipei City. She is also an associate professor of Taiwan Police College, Department of Criminal Investigation. Actually, Dr. Zhang, with much passionate, has worked as an advocate for the violence against women for a long, long time. When I met her, she was very, very young. She was so strong and worked so hard for the victims. And I admired her very, very much. And her topic for today is zero tolerance of gender-based violence, strengthening domestic violence prevention during COVID-19 in New Taipei City. Please, Dr. Zhang.
Thank you for Li Ping. Hello to everyone who has joined me online. I am Zhang Jingli, Commissioner of the Social Welfare Department, New Taipei City Government of the Republic of China. Today, I'm going to talk about zero tolerance for violence. I will mainly focus on the efforts New Taipei City has made in combating domestic violence during the COVID-19 pandemic. Overall, New Taipei City has adhered to the 6P epidemic prevention strategies, namely proact, plan, prepare, practice, package, and protect, of which proact is the most important. Proact indicates our attempts to proactively respond to situations rather than doing so passively. The planning and the implementation of corresponding strategies are of great importance to proacting. Meanwhile, we should take inventory of human and material resources to prepare for the long-term battle against the pandemic. Considering that all talk and no action is futile, we must conduct simulation practices to gain experience and improve our response capacity. Of course, in the process, we must also incorporate innovations and use various technologies as support tools. Our ultimate goal is to protect New Taipei City citizens, especially those who are disadvantaged. Under such a framework, New Taipei City established an emergency operations center for COVID-19 on January 6, 2020. By January 22, the center has activated the first level emergency response, which requires New Taipei City Mayor to personally host emergency response meetings. Thus far, we have held hundreds of meetings. Mayor Hou You-yi attaches great importance to domestic violence prevention, and he instructs us to curb domestic violence while combating the pandemic. Therefore, we must also act proactively against the domestic violence. Our strategy is to first publish the statistics, which we noticed have risen during the pandemic. Other public departments may not dare to release such statistics, but Mayor Hou has encouraged us to do so. Most importantly, we must proactively take corresponding actions. Statistically speaking, we noticed that cases of reported domestic violence increased by 15% from 2019 to 2020. Specifically, March 2020 was the annual peak of domestic violence, which increased by nearly 30% compared with the same months of the preceding year. Obviously, such a result may be attributable to many other factors besides the pandemic, but the outbreak of the pandemic still serves as the main contributing factor. Therefore, since March 2020, we have made proactive efforts to combat domestic violence, which have resulted in tremendous improvement. By December 2020, the annual growth rate has been reduced to only 10%. Our proactive actions against the domestic violence involve three levels of prevention. The primary prevention centers on strategies to promote economic stability, because economy has been known to be closely associated with domestic violence. According to studies conducted worldwide, unemployment is directly proportional to domestic violence. Overall, economic stability constitutes a projective focus on the most for primary prevention. Regarding second prevention, we take special measures to protect high-risk population for domestic violence in an attempt to prevent relevant incidents. Tertiary prevention involves emergency response and relief to victims of domestic violence incidents that have already occurred. Regarding the primary prevention, New Taipei City established a COVID-19 emergency relief program and is the nation's first to create a fund against the domestic violence at the end of the January 2020. The Anti-Epidemic Fund integrates resources from various fields of society. In addition to the budget allocated by the public sector, fundraising enables all sectors of our society to invest resources in the Anti-Epidemic Fund, thereby offering financial support to underprivileged population at high risk of domestic violence. Each household can receive a maximum of NT 10,000, which is distributed through different channels, including our 29 district offices, 11 social welfare centers, and various non-governmental organizations. By doing so, we hope that victims of domestic violence can access these resources very quickly. Likewise, the unemployment benefits provide great convenience to applicants. For example, we have simplified the reimbursement procedure for unemployment benefits, permitted group application, and aid flexible services counters in attempt to bring convenience to applicants, help them find employment as soon as possible, and provide them with short-term job opportunities. Each applicant can receive up to NT 27,000 of subsidy per month for a maximum period of 6 months, which may be further extended if necessary. Central government also offers an employment promotion program in which an employment allowance is subsidized according to applicants' working hours. The subsidy is NT 158 per hour for maximum of 80 hours per month. Thousands of people has received such assistance. Seeing the increased number of underprivileged people, the central government properly announced the extended implementation of emergency relief in May 2020. Since the announcement, many applicants have applied in the hope of receiving the emergency relief subsidy quickly, and each person can receive up to NT 30,000. In response, the New Taipei City government immediately issued a standard operating manual for the extended implementation of emergency relief, the distribution of which required great manpower. Considering that none of our staff are familiar with the process, so we issue a professional manual to help them distribute the subsidy to people in need. Because Mayor Ho was concerned that public servants may fail to properly distribute the subsidy to those in need for fear of taking on responsibility. So he had a specific mayor seal made for emergency relief. The seal serves as the foundation based on which entry-level public servants distribute emergency relief subsidies. These two measures have enabled us to approve and distribute a total amount of almost NT 1.2 billion, which account for 1/5 of the nation's total disbursement. This is an extremely high percentage. Regarding secondary prevention, we discovered that older adults are particularly vulnerable to the disease and the domestic violence. Therefore, we cooperate with non-governmental organizations to provide them with special protection. We specifically make sure that older adults are protected rather than isolated. At that time, multiple community care centers for older adults closed down, but that did not stop us from providing continual care. For example, we have increased the frequency of check-in call services, considering that we can neither ask them to leave their house nor provide at-home services. We make telephone calls to check on their well-being, join meals, and to encourage older adults to leave their home and eat together, have been replaced with mailbox delivery. In addition, we have distributed additional face masks to older adults living alone. Realizing that many older adults are stuck at home, we have created exercise videos for older adults to enhance their physical and mental health. We also work with celebrities adored by older adults to shoot a short video promoting hand washing. Everyone can watch this video on our channel. We understand that domestic violence is the result of poor emotional control. Therefore, we team up with psychiatric experts to create videos promoting emotional control, which are regularly broadcast on 30 cable television networks in New Taipei cities. In terms of secondary prevention, we are aware of situations in which some families on the verge of domestic violence may be embarrassed to call our hotline 113 or 110. Thus, we specifically established the New Taipei City Home Quarantine Support Center so that people who are struggling can call the center for physical support, subsidies for the disadvantaged, and the various related assistance. For tertiary prevention, what can we do to help our fellow citizens who have become victims of domestic violence? First of all, we should offer them emergency relief services. If the victims are repeatedly abused during the pandemic, we will not leave the victims living alone with the abuser. We will arrange free accommodation for them at epidemic prevention hotels, considering that letting them stay in shelters can increase the risk of the epidemic spread. By offering easy accommodation when combined the efforts of police and the civil authorities, neighborhood village chiefs, and the non-governmental organizations to strengthen our care for victims of domestic violence. We also aware of the importance of reinforcing judicial power. For example, if someone violates the restraining order, police and the prosecutors should come forward to deter the violator and even send the violator to prison when necessary. Do all these efforts enable us to effectively inform people who are truly in need of relevant information? A gender-friendly resources package containing crucial epidemic prevention information was designed specifically to address the problem. Targeting victims of domestic violence, older adults, family caregivers, and underprivileged workers, the resources package integrates welfare practices pertaining to social, health, and labor services. The gender-friendly resource package we create in multiple languages because Taiwan has many immigrants who are not born and raised locally and immigrated to New Taipei City from other countries because of marriage. Taking them into account, we made the package multilingual to offer relevant services. As part of the package, subsidy for tax rights were arranged for pregnant women to commute for prenatal checkups. These vehicles are thoroughly disinfected so pregnant women can attend the checkups with peace of mind. For family caregivers, we offer care hotlines, psychological support, and some online education resources. That is, when you feel bored at an epidemic prevention hotel or at home, you can access ebooks through digital lending services provided by us. Moreover, we offer home exercise videos so that family caregivers can follow a proper exercise regimen. Through the aforementioned measures, we hope to effectively prevent gender-based violence, especially domestic violence. This year, so far, we have kept domestic violence under control despite the continuation of the COVID-19 pandemic. To sum up, compared with the occurrence of domestic violence, we feel more concerned about not having the corresponding countermeasures. This is the end of my report. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Commissioner Zhang. As a government officer, you shared with us about the new Taipei City's actions and services for women, particularly for those suffered in the violence women during the COVID-19. Thank you very much. And I think we will ask you some more questions about your city's policy and your action. And then we would like to invite the next speaker, Dr. Fenling Zhang, the professor in Department of Social Work, National Taipei University. She is General Secretary of ICSW, which is a very important social work organization in Taiwan. Dr. Chen is also the Research Fellow of National Taiwan University Children and Family Research Center. And her topic for our session is a different experience of COVID-19 among the genders. Please, Professor Chen. Now it's your floor.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Yeah, this is Fenling Chen. I'm the professor of Department of Social Work, National Taipei University, and also the president of Council of Social Welfare Taiwan. And previously, I'm the Dean of Student Affairs in my school. And this is very honored to share my research with you. And we have my specialty is social policy and gender. And we find that there are some issues about gender inequality during the COVID-19 event. And we find that women make up only 24% of COVID-19 report committees on average. It's also the same situation in Taiwan. Every day we have press committee, a conference, but you find that in the decision-making person, they are all male. And secondly, only 64 countries, they report both COVID-19 case and death by genders. And this gender stratifications are very important according to the UN gender mainstreaming policies. And the third one is women have taken on more housework during the pandemic. In a lot of countries, they report women doing more things because the lockdown policies, a lot of people have to stay at home from their workplace, or children are forbidden to go to the school. So women have to do more things at home. The first one is that women makes 70% of the workers in the nurse and the social service labor market. And we do find that, women, when they work for the take care professional, they do feel exhausted in the pandemic event. And also we find that we also find that women more violence against women in pandemic situation, maybe because people under the pressure of unemployment, and they spend more time at home. And the last one is that women as a man caregiver, and they have more risk of infection. And this also the same situation in Taiwan. We find it in a lot of local cases, and more women as a caregiver, they are much more easy to get infected by the patients for the pandemic COVID-19. So we find some gender inequality issues in this event. And the most important is that women lose their job in many countries. There's a lot of case report from the other countries. For example, for the United States, in last year, December, they find that a lot of people lose their job, and 100% of the unemployment people, they are women, because women work in the service sectors, and they are more easy to lose their job. And also in Japan, female part-time workers lose their job during the COVID-19 event. And this one makes more women are threatened by poverty, especially for the single parents. They have to do a lot of part-time work, and they lose their income during the pandemic. And also the same situation in Korea, because the service sectors, they don't need so many, they don't have so many jobs. So a lot of people report they don't have job, and they give up job seeking. And those women, most of them are women, because it's not easy to find a new job. And how about Taiwan? That's the situation of Taiwan. And last week, we still have basketball games. And this one is the Phantom of Opera, just played last year, November in Taiwan. We can have enjoyed those kind of event in Taiwan. So we are so lucky about it. But even though Taiwan also experienced the unemployment or wage reduce the event, according to the official survey, we find the number of unpaid leave in Taiwan reached the highest peak. The unpaid leave, they means the employer didn't fire you, they just don't give you wage. And this event is even more serious than the number during the 2008 financial tsunami. And also, we can find the top 5 industry during the unpaid leave. They are retail, manufacturing, accommodation and catering, professional science and technical service and support service industries. So in this report, I would like to share two surveys with you made by me and my colleague. The first one is we have finished a questionnaire to the youth, and we collect 12,000 cases on April 2020. And this survey finished by Golden Card Culture and Education Foundation. And the second one is collect data from the parents. Those parents have children from 7 years old until 18 years old. And we collect 200 parents last year, June, about the impact on study and the agreement and the practice of policies, and the impact on jobs or impact on parenting relationships. And we do find that from the parents survey, we do find that there are some impact on jobs and the income. The majority of them complain that their working load increase or reduce. But the most serious problem is that 66% full-time job, they report that their income reduced. And also for the part-time job worker, 73% of them report their income reduced. And we find that which industry are more damaged by this event. And we find 43% of service industry, they are affected. And 66% of machine operation, they find their income reduced. And we also find that there are top 6 industries, they are more serious infected by this event, including traditional industry, financial and insurance industry, service industry, retail industry, and catering and self-employed people. Almost over half of them report their income reduced during the event. And it's difficult to find the differences from the statistic meaning between genders. Maybe because it's not too many cases, only 200 cases. But we find that more women are willing to ask for help, and this is a very important during the crisis or risk, because we find that male, even they suffer from the pressure of job, they don't ask for help. And about the youth survey, we find they are very interesting. A lot of differences between genders. We can find that you can guess which, boy or girl, which one are all obeyed the restrict during the pandemic. And it's quite surprising that boys are much more obey the rule about you have to mask. You have to wear a mask when you go out, and girls feel more easy about it. And also, 67% of boys they report they will wear mask in class, and the less girl will do so in the class. And but we find girls are more concerned about the COVID-19 event will affect their learning opportunities. So they complain, more girls complain that this event adversely affect their learning opportunities in school. And also they complain that this event affect their self-learning in school, not at home. And also they feel the event also affect their supplementary learning. That means they have usually in Taiwan, they will not only attend the class in school, but also attend another class outside of the school, after the school. So the female, the girl also complain that they are more affected by the event. And boys complain that their social activities has been reduced. They are forbidden to go out to do the activities. And the more boys report that they have to stay at home. They spend more time at home, maybe because they don't stay at home at all before the event. So they have to stay at home more than usual. But the boys also report that they watch more news during the event. They are more concerned about the event, what's happened in Taiwan or what's happened in international societies. So they are more care about the event from the news. And also they are so worried about their family will get COVID-19. And they are more concerned about whether they themselves will get COVID-19 compared to girls. So thank you so much. I would like to share the last picture with you. Taiwan is so solidarity during the event of COVID-19 pandemic. We are quite famous that we can produce masks during the event. So we also make a lot of masks to do international friendship. We are not only outside of the international society, but in the COVID-19 event, we are also outside of the COVID-19 event. So we want to join, we want to contribute ourselves. So we made a lot of masks to do the friendship with other countries. And this is the mask we made for Dutch. And the colors which represent Dutch are orange. So I think that's quite special for Taiwan. And that's all. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you join me. Okay.
Really appreciate for your presentation. It's a very, very important view, not only from the genders inequality, but also you mentioned about the youth issues, youth situation during the pandemic. I think it's very, very important for us. Thank you very much. And next, we will go to the Dr. Sun Mingwei. I received our last speaker, Dr. Mingwei Sun. He's apologized for his absence. It's very, very pity he cannot attend this session at this moment, but he sincerely met the record for us. And Dr. Mingwei Sun, he is the vice head of the Medical and Health College and the head of the Department of Psychology, Asia University. And his topic is a very, very attractive presentation. His topic is males in Taiwan are braver, differences of the COVID-19 phobia between gender, and different pandemic countries. Above presentations, we talked about Taiwan, we talked about the new Taipei city, we talked about the youth, women, and now we will hear something from the different region, like Asia, like the different in Asia. And now let's see Dr. Sun's record.
Head of the Department of Psychology in Asia universities. Dear friends online, thank you for you listening to the above talks. My name is Sun Mingwei. I'm the head of the Department of Psychology in Asia universities. Today, I'm going to share a result which I was doing the research on the COVID-19 threat. And this topic would be the males in Taiwan are braver, differences of the COVID-19 phobia between gender and the different pandemic countries. This talk we are talking about what kind of the factors may be protect our phobia, and also the differences between the gender and the different pandemic countries. So in the beginning, we are talking about the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. As we know, the COVID-19 pandemic is a huge event in these centuries. According to the WHO in 2020, they point out that the COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted the critical mental health service in 93% of the countries or the territories. And also, the spread of the COVID-19 has become the main focus in the world. Based on the data, the COVID-19 pandemic affects 215 countries or territories around the world. And the total infection cases are still counting and increasing. So right now, some countries, they have already used the vaccine to protect people. Hope this control will be handle the COVID-19 pandemic. Since the pandemic has spread through the 2020, there is no prediction when the outbreak will end yet. Thus, each country or territory in the world is implementing the new health protocol for their societies. The psychological impact of the COVID-19 outbreak is an urgent cause. Because COVID-19 is a very serious situation for the human beings, so people, they will be influenced, especially for their psychological perspective. Like the flooding in 2020, COVID-19 phobia and the regional differences is very important, since the outbreak is reaching the worldwide, and each country or territories implementing their policies. Their combat results with the pandemic would rely on it. Therefore, a global study has found a significant differences in the psychological impacts between regions, which means that each country might have the different mental health problems, which means the regional differences shows different results. So maybe different regions or like the country or territory, they have different policy to control the COVID-19 pandemic. So maybe the people living in this country or regions, they have the different trait, and maybe they will be feel more safe or unsafe. Furthermore, even individual differences such as the gender, academic background, financial status, and occupations also will be face different mental health problems. So we can see there are many factors that maybe influence the human beings during the COVID-19 period. In order to measure the COVID-19 phobia, the previous researchers, they have already developed standard questionnaire, which is also called the COVID-19 phobia scale. We also call the C90PS. And in that scales, when people they have the higher score, that means they have the higher phobias. And also they have the 4 factors, including the first factor, which is the psychological factor, which has the 6 items. This factor will influence the participants' psychological situations. And also the second factor is the psychosomatic factor, which has the 5 items. And in these factors, people will show, do they have any physical illness or any feel uncomfortable. The third one would be the economic factor. It has the 4 items that's related to the economic the influence, and also if they feel they will be influenced by the COVID-19 on their economic, it will also measure that. And the last one, the social factors, that means the COVID-19 may be influenced the social society. So in these factors, people they will show how do they be influenced by the COVID-19. So this scale has a good reliability and the validity properties. The C90PS results also differentiate the infected and the non-infected subject. So that means this is a very standard and very nice scale to measure the COVID-19 phobia. So when we look at the period study, let you find some gender differences. For example, like the gender is one of the critical determinants in the mental health. For example, like the WHO 2013, they also indicate that the gender-specific determinants and the mechanisms are important, and the gender difference has been found, such as the depression in the most common women's mental health problem. And the other research also found that the anxiety of the female medical staff was higher than among the male. So still the PTSD score was found higher among females. So we can see the gender differences, and also the females seems like to be more influenced or more sensitive on these situation changes. And also for the other research, Lee 2020, they found out that the association between the gender differences related to the COVID-19 phobia. So that's the reason we also can use this COVID-19 phobia scale to measure the differences and to do more researches. And also there is a higher psychological vulnerabilities in the women during the COVID-19 pandemic. So when we use the COVID-19 phobia scale, we can also find out that the COVID-19 phobia was higher in females, which has been found in 2020. So also, I also want to know when the differences, when the different regions, maybe that will cause the different phobia too for the females. Therefore, this study focuses on the COVID-19 phobia as a mental health problem and concerned various countries or regions, pandemic situation, and genders. So right now, I'm quickly talking about the aim and the method in my research. In this research, we have the 2 independent variables. One is the epidemic label, the other one is the gender. In the epidemic label, that means in a country or region, they have the less control, like the USA during the 2020, or if when the countries they have the nice control, that means also the under control COVID-19, like the Taiwan. So the gender will be the male and the female. And as we expect, the dependent variable will be the COVID-19 phobia scale, which is the 20 items, as we said before. And we using the Google survey, and we published this survey during the end of the 2020. So in that situation, the different countries like USA, they are still in not very good control. So that's the reason we try to separate them in the different epidemic levels. And our participants, which is stay in USA or stay in Taiwan. So that would also including the different countries. For example, like the USA sampling, we have the 291 participants, which come from the different country, but most of them are the American. The other one is the participant in Taiwan. Here is also the international participants. We have the 201, and those participants, they still live in that area more than 6 months, so that would be our participant. So right now, we are going to quickly talk about our results. So in this sampling, we can find a very nice internal validity test. As we see, even though the whole survey, all the 4 different factors, we still have the very nice compound alpha value, which will be above the 0.84. So that means our sampling is very nice, and this scale is still good. And according to the two-way ANOVA in total score, we can interesting find that we have the interaction effect between the epidemic level and the genders. And we also have the two main effects, like the epidemic level and the genders. So for the epidemic levels, that means people, they will be more phobias in United States rather than in Taiwan. So above result shows that female, as we expected, have higher COVID-19 phobia rather than the males. In addition, also as we expected, participants in United States have the higher COVID-19 phobia rather than the ones in the Taiwan. Okay, so here we can see the figures, and here is the people stay in Taiwan, and this shows the people stay in United States, and the scale would be the phobia scores, and we can see that as we show above, the people in United States have the higher phobia rather than the people in Taiwan. And in addition, according to the simple main effect test, there is no gender differences of the COVID-19 phobia in the United States. So that means people, they live in the they stay in the United States, they have a similar phobia, even though they have the different genders. And interestingly, the men in Taiwan obtain the less phobia rather than the female. Like here, when we look at the people stay in Taiwan, the female has the higher phobia rather than men. So that means maybe male in Taiwan, they are more braver. So that would be interesting results. So furthermore, the other two-way ANOVA result is also showing that the 4 factors in C90PS also have the quite interesting result. For example, there is a similar result has been found on the psychological factor, economical factor, and the social factors. That means in those 3 factors, people, they do find the epidemic level differences and the gender differences. As the expected, there is no any significant differences on the psychosomatic factors. So in here, we can see the very
我现在没办法，因为整个荧幕是黑的。你可以远端有空开它。
可是我现在要求
Sorry to everybody because of technical problem. Now we are fixing, but it seems like time is almost up. So if you have questions, just write through chat, and we'll reply to you. Sorry about that. And thank you for your comment and thank you for everything. We are highly appreciate your participation, and hopefully we'll see you next time in New York or in the our viral meeting too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. See you around.
Bye. See you.
See you.
Oh, sorry. We still have some time. Sorry. I thought that 12 o'clock would be the time to finish. No, not yet. Sorry, I saw mistake.
Yeah, I think it's 12:30.
12:30. Okay, go. So go. Because technical problem right now, but Lipin, please. Sorry. Maybe we can just share our feelings because they are working on the technical issues. Can I have a kind of share my impression today? Although our last speaker didn't show up today, but he did good job for us, right? How do you think?
I'm sorry for the interruption. But according to Dr. Sun's talk,
yes,
she wants to give us a view that male in Taiwan might be protected well in the COVID-19 in pandemic control, but not the females. I think it's a very clearly presentation about this. Therefore, our government or our society seems needed to provide more support and more service and consideration on women. I think during his presentation and the PPT, it showed us about this. And now I think we can continue to our Q&A, question and answers part. For the first question, I would like to ask Professor Chiu. You are the expert in pandemic. You have a very, very deep and wonderful experience in SARS. And would you want to add more advice and suggestions to the public and the private sector? Because you are so important female leaders in this area.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I think the social participation in Taiwan is quite widespread, and we have good societal solidarity and resilience. However, from today's presentations, we can see that we have done something, we have done a lot, but certainly we can do better. And I deeply appreciated the analysis from today's speakers on gender perspective. And you can also see that local governments have done a lot, not only to address gender issue or domestic violence issue, but they dig into the deep ground to look at the upstream issue that may lead to domestic violence, such as unemployment issue. So I think we can do better. And I think in addition to the efforts by local governments and by academia, I also hope that the national government can do further analysis on gender perspective. This is one thing. And at the same time, they must provide the data is very important. And the second thing is, as Professor Zhang Jie has mentioned, that the mental health aspect is very important. And also many speakers have raised that concern. The third thing is the sustainable development perspective, which include employment and education, because one of the speakers, Professor Chen, also showed that among adolescents, the impact on education might be different. Okay, so I think we still have a lot to do. We have done a lot. We appreciate our national government and local governments for doing a good job. However, certainly we can do better. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, our experts on the pandemic. We know you give the government lots of the advice from the public instruments and the media. Thank you very much. Share with us. And next, I would like to ask Professor Wang. You are also very, very important experts on the violence against women, and you have lots of the knowledge and working skills to teach the students on the violence. And based on your talk, can you further elaborate the impacts on COVID-19 on domestic violence? That's your field. And what might be the reasons relevant to the domestic violence occurrence at this stage, this moment of a pandemic?
Yeah, thank you, President Li Ping. This is a great, very crucial question for the female particularly. And as Professor Zhang Jinli told us, in the field, you can see the number of domestic violence, particularly the survivor of females, has been increasing under the strengthening of the COVID-19. And I just give you several theories to address this kind of phenomena. First one, what is the economic security, which is so crucial? We call economic empowerment for the domestic violence. At the crisis of COVID-19, many people, particularly women, are first fired, last hired. And they are the most suffered population in the COVID-19 because they are working in the marginalized and female-led sector, including tourism, accommodation, and even restaurants, something like this. But those are closed in Taiwan, particularly because of lack of tourists from mainland China. So this is one of the reasons why female survivors of domestic violence need a lot of attention. And another reason is many men who used to be working at the working environment, but they are fired as well, or they got unpaid leave as well. And when they got home, their emotional is not good. So the conflict situation happened wrong between the relationship, between the marriage relationship. So this is something why domestic violence can be increased, economic security issue, or kind of intimate relationship has been lost, something due to the kind of situation. So think about it, why we need to have a gender perspective for the domestic violence issue. I think Jingli can address more because they do have a lot of cases going around how they impact, how to deal with this kind of situation. Maybe you can pass the question to her.
Sure, I will.
Mm-hmm.
And Commissioner Zhang, in the recent years, New Taipei City achieved a very, very good performance on the women's rights and gender equality. Commissioner Zhang, you are taking your colleague work very, very hard in gender equality and women's welfare. As I know, New Taipei City in the women's work always got many times, maybe twice, #1 among the cities. And would you like to share with us, how do you lead your city, lead your colleague, and particularly in the gender equality, this area? How do you implement your policy, your strategy, and get so well performance? Please share with us.
Thank you for your encouragement. The new Taipei City government has set 2016 as the new Taipei Gender Equality Year. And all the bureaus of the whole government have been working together. Throughout the whole year, we have continued to promote the program of such highlights in a relying manner, integrating the original work or activities into gender perspective, such as holding women's entrepreneurship. Thematic lectures encourage women to learn about entrepreneurship, strengthen the concept of equality between men and women, and declare that married daughters also have the right to inherit property. Encourage people to examine the funeral ceremonies with gender equality and actively promote equal opportunities for men and women. Men and women to participate in traditional ritual of successful operation in the market, to promote women's groups to turn the underprivileged women away from violence and economical self-reliance, and to deepen gender mainstreaming to eliminate all forms of discrimination against women. The activity initiative makes gender equality in a habit in life and goes deep into every corner of New Taipei City to create a healthy and quality living environment. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Zhang. And let's go back to the SDGs. I think Professor Chiu, you work very, very hard, and you are interested in the sustainable development. And you participated in the international work on this field very much. And would you like to share with us which one is the most urgent need to achieve the sustainable development goals? Which one is the most important and very urgent? I think I will say the women gender equality. And how about you?
Yeah, actually, in the field of public health, we also advocate that gender equity is key to achieve SDGs, holistic, comprehensive progresses on SDGs. And there's a publication from World Federation of Public Health Associations showing how gender equity might facilitate the progresses toward SDGs. And using this chance to answer your question, I would also like to answer one question raised in the chat room regarding vaccination hesitancy.
Mm-hmm.
And as I mentioned in my presentation, that current challenge to Taiwan is that we have delayed development of domestic vaccine, and we have delayed procurement of external vaccines. And before the, very unfortunately, that before the government managed to secure the supply, some people have started to trying to comfort the public by saying that we are very safe because we don't have cases. And they say we are even safer without the vaccine. And they said that vaccination might create adverse event. And that's very bad to say that, because that actually exacerbates vaccine hesitancy. According to a previous survey, about 60% of the public said they might be willing to receive the vaccine. However, now the government has managed to get the first vaccine, but the top one group priority, the healthcare professionals, it turned out that only 1/3 of them registered to receive AZ vaccine. So the vaccination hesitancy has been here, and it's a problem, an issue worth of the government's attention. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. And also Commissioner Zhang, for the same issue, and you are the government officer from the public sector. How do you think, what is the most great urgent need to implement the SDGs?
Philippines, women and girls everywhere must have equal rights and opportunity and be able to live free of violence and the discrimination I have mentioned before. And women's equality and empowerment is one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, but also integral to all dimensions of inclusive and sustainable development. In short, all the SDGs depend on the achievement of Goal 5. Eliminating gender-based violence is a priority. Given that this is one of the most pervasive human rights violations in the world today, we step up action on gender equality. Every part of the world can make progress toward sustainable development by 2030, leaving no one behind.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yes, yes. Thank you very much. And Dr. Professor Chen Fenling, Dr. Chen, yes, you talked a lot about the young people. I think we are very happy to listen about this field, because maybe we miss this field for our young generation. And you are the young scholars and the young generation professors in our field. And would you like to strengthen this part about the youth needs during the pandemic period?
Okay, thank you for the question from Li Ping. I'm so happy to hear that I'm the young scholar. And yes, yeah, because yes, we are so happy that we can collect the data from the youth, and they are quite different. They are quite different between genders, and also between several kinds of children. And I also want to share the phenomena with you that some students, they study outside of Taiwan. Maybe they study in mainland China or they study in USA. they kick out, they come back to Taiwan during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this situation haven't changed at all. They stay still in Taiwan, and they have problem to finish their study outside of Taiwan, and maybe they have to they will consider about what's their future, whether they should continue their study outside of Taiwan, or maybe they want to develop their the career outside of Taiwan, but nowadays they have to think about, they have to have a second thought whether they will finish their study. And also some families, they reduce their education fee about their children. Maybe in the past, they spend a lot of money for the kids to attend a lot of course outside the school. But nowadays, they will consider whether I should spend money or the family wage, the wage of the father or the mother already reduced, and whether they should continue the same family situation in the future. And we also find that a lot of families in university, maybe because I'm the Dean of Student Affairs, I'm so concerned about whether they can finish their studies in university. And we do find that some families, they suffer from the academic problem, but they are not used to ask for help in the past, because in the past, the government only reach those poor people. But for the ordinary people, they are not used to ask for help outside the family. But nowadays, they face the economy problem, and maybe they cannot pay the tuition fee for the children, and they are ashamed to ask for help. So in the future, maybe still have a lot of social policy we can do in the future, and a lot of family problem, and we have to face in the future. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for Professor Chen, your wonderful suggestions and advice. I think I would like to make a conclusion for our session. We have learned many gender and youth issues during the COVID-19 epidemic in our session. And these issues did not appear out of thin air, but the various unequal gender systems that existed in society were highlighted again through the epidemic period. We should turn this crisis into a turning point. The epidemic has disrupted people's normal daily lives. Now we should take this time period to carefully examine gender issues and youth issues in the whole society. It is also a good and a unique chance, very special time to build an ideal society on a sound basis. Through the international cooperation among organizations, NPOs, and gender groups in different countries, these issues should be spoken out during the epidemic period. Like you, the wonderful leaders, women leaders, and hopefully to raise gender awareness and watch the true situation, what women and girls are suffering, just like you share with us during these sessions. And lastly, the time is running out. Thanks again for these 5 marvelous speakers. Your presentation is so wonderful and so remarkable. And I think lots of the people, they got the learning from you and we need your support continuously. And at last, we would like to thank for our audience for their fully support and participation. Even we have some trouble during this session, but we overcome. And now may I invite our speakers to wave your hands and say goodbye one another. And thank you everyone for your participation. We should end this session here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Great thanks to the moderator.
Okay.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
all
Thank
of
you.
you.
Bye again.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye-bye.